About the audiences, I don't know. Sometimes they don't stand, so I wonder how bad our play is. Of course, Satyajit Ray would say that he has said that the Indian audience is a very stupid audience. But we can't say that because we question ourselves as performers and.
It took a while for me to get the comfort to direct someone like Vikram. And we definitely did have a little bit of, not confrontation, but there was definitely a moment where there was a clash. And I remember this clearly. We worked through it, we spoke, we sent a few emails about all the points that are working, not working. And at the end of it, Vikram came back to me and said, okay, now that we've had this moment, now I fully trust you. I'm yours, let's go.
I start first with writing, obviously, but if I'm writing myself as a playwright, I start with something that I want to say. So I don't really speak much in society. Whatever I want to say, I say in my work or through my work.
Hi Daniel, hi Vikram.
Hi.
Welcome to Mumbai Theatre, right?
Hi Neha, thank you.
Alright, so my first question on Red, how did you come across the play and how did you decide to adapt it to Indian stage?
I just came across it by just reading through plays. You know how it is, you start Googling small cast. At that time I wanted to do something which I thought would be like easy to produce at that point. So I was looking at small cast plays and I came across Red. And when you click on these links, you get to read a bit of a preview script. And sometimes you can tell if a play is going to work straight away in those first 10 pages. And the first 10 pages of Red gripped me immediately. Bought the entire script, read the whole thing, knew who I wanted to work with, and that was it.
Right, and Vikram, how did you, what drew you to the play basically?
Well, it's the same thing. But like he said, two characters easy to do. I don't think it was easy to do at all. But it was a great script. So I read actually the first 2 or 3 pages. And I knew that this is going to be a very strong script and a very strong character. So in fact, both the characters. And I felt straight away that this would be one of the best roles I would get to play on stage. So, I mean, we played good roles and all, but I thought, this, after being in theatre for almost 40 years or so, I thought would be the best character to play. So, there's no question of saying no. It's an offer I couldn't refuse.
Right.
So,
were you familiar with Mark Rothko? Were you interested in painting before either of you? Or?
Honestly, not really. I mean, I've traveled quite a bit and you go to the museums. I definitely will say that I was always attracted to art. I would be able to stand in front of a painting and really absorb, take in. I would definitely see myself having some kind of a visceral response. I actually also did study history of art, but like ancient, but also like the art, we were looking at ancient Greece and Naples art. So this world was kind of new to me. I didn't know much, but I've seen quite a bit. And I do respond to art viscerally.
Nice, alright.
I don't know.
Yeah, would you want to add something to that?
well, I mean, I've been on the fringe of the world, of the art world.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I am a layman. I'm not an intellectual, but I see art. I like some of it. I remember at the age of 13, I happened to be in Milan, I think, and I saw The Last Supper, and I was quite stunned when I saw it. But as an adult, I have had acquaintances, close acquaintances from the art world. People like Jahangir Sabawala and Giv Patel, Melli Gobai, and all these artists. So I have been to a few soirees where I've interacted with them and learned a little more about art. I'm not an expert or connoisseur at all. But I didn't know about Mark Rothko until I read the play, and then I studied, the man. And I happen to love the man, and that's important when you play a character, a certain character.
Are you a connoisseur now?
Well, I'm improving. I'm learning a lot more, and it's great. And what's great is that he's an intellectual, and I'm not. So for me, that's a challenge to imbibe that part of his being, which I love. So
But you said that he's an intellectual and you're not. But I was looking at several of your interviews, and you've always said that you've been drawn to realism and how the Indian theatre audience is really forgiving, and they'll give a standing ovation for any play or close to any play. Let's say that. And you have so much discussion in Red on what is a good audience of painting and art and stuff like that. Do you think Rothko kind of reflects you as a person even? Have you thought about that?
well, someone told me who's seen the play that I'm a lot like him. But I am not an intellectual. About the audiences, I don't know. Sometimes they don't stand, so I wonder how bad our play is after. So, yeah, but we do have a forgiving audience, and they accept anything.
Why do you think that is?
Because I've seen them give standing ovations for plays which are not even good as third grade stuff in school.
Right.
So I'm like, these are nice people,
Yeah.
So, and I'm not trying to point fingers at other people, but it's like we're trying to do the best we can, and we expect a certain standard from the others as well. So, yeah, even films, it's not only theatre, and they're okay, they're easy to please.
Yes.
But I think with theatre, though, what I have noticed is it's a lot of the audience that are new. Of course, in the theatre, they're a much smaller percentage. But there are people who've never watched theatre before. And when they come in, I think just the experience of watching what they would assume film-esque work on stage live, people tend to respond to that, I've noticed. And another thing about audiences, I think we want to be entertained. We crave work, we crave entertainment. So the minute something is even remotely funny, it's a invitation to release into laughter. So it's always, I see people sitting on the seat's edge, waiting for something to grasp onto. Yeah.
Of course, Satyajit Ray would say that he has said that the Indian audience is a very stupid audience, but we can't say that because we question ourselves as performers and creators in the performing arts. So he at his level could make that statement and not get hammered for it.
But now you're making a statement. There's a camera there.
No, I'm just saying this is what Satyajit Ray said. Because I do plays where I get to learn something as well. It's not just honing your craft or sharing it with people. So I am a learner myself. So, but I think the education is so diverse in this country that everyone has a different interpretation or what they think theatre is about or what it should be. Like for some it's the Ram Leela, it's larger than life. It's our history of theatre. Proscenium theatre came much later from the West. So everyone, for some it's the yatra, for some it's storytelling, for some it's bedroom comedies. So it's difficult to please everyone, I think.
And so a large audience is drawn when you have the largest common denominator as
Yeah, I think.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Coming back to Red, it is a very specific New York 1950s kind of way of speaking, which I thought was, I'm no actor or anything like that, but I thought it was like a mouthful to say those lines and such long lines. Even we don't speak like that in Mumbai in 2024. How was it like getting into that language and then making it sound convincing? Because, for example, if you have something like a Mughal Azam, you expect the lines to be like that. Or if you have something like Shakespeare, you expect it to be Shakespearean language,
Right.
which is not modern English, but you're thinking this is 20th century, so this must be close enough to ours, but it's not really. So how do you go about that?
Well, I think it's working on the character, you make the lines your own, and that takes a while. But I don't think the lines are specifically belonging to some other era or style or genre or anything. They are lines spoken by a very articulate person. So it's just getting used to that and saying it. In fact, I would say it's close to semi-classical, but it's not really. It's just someone who's very articulate, who's an intellectual, who's read a lot. And the play is written by a heavyweight. I mean, John Logan, even as a screenplay writer, and so I don't think it requires a different approach. It's just about understanding.
Like, I think good dialogues are always speakable. And you can feel that in the writing. It somehow just does roll off, at least my tongue, when I was reading it for the first time. And I knew it would do the same for Vikram. Language, I don't see it as outside our world. I mean, for a lot of us, we are native Indian English speakers. And honestly, the language didn't seem foreign to me. Like, if you read, you read multiple authors, and this language is something you come across. And in fact, for me, the language was liberating, because all the expression was there in the words. I didn't have to find anything extra to put on top of the words. Just speaking the words with honesty and truth is enough in this case. I think for me also, I had a very formal theatre acting training, studying the classics, and it's that understanding of sentence structures, the use of punctuation. That's something really important that good writers put in. Where do you punctuate? That sets the rhythm of the piece, and it tells you all about the character. It's all there in the words. So I think for us, both of us, like when we read it the first time, it did flow, right? It
did flow. And in fact, if one tries to improvise with a script like this, it doesn't really work, because I think a lot of work has gone into, like you said, the structure and the punctuations and the sentences. So it's like Shakespeare, if we do something on our own, we get caught. So we have stuck to the script. I mean, I would say 99.999, maybe preposition here or there, that's changed.
I mean, I'm usually very strict about that. So there may be like 2 or 3 prepositions off, but otherwise it's really accurate to the script. But I will say something else. Like when I was studying Shakespeare and using Shakespeare in text, I wouldn't understand half the words I was saying, but you didn't need to understand the words, because once you speak that entire line or that entire soliloquy or whatever it is, you get a sense of what's being spoken. And that's a really powerful thing about language. It's even for an audience, some of the words, some of the phrasing will go over their heads, but the sense that comes out of it is always grasped, especially with John Logan's writing.
Makes sense. So you have both worked with each other previously, right?
Yeah.
I think on Julius Caesar, is that it? Or
No,
on Merchant of Venice.
on Merchant of Venice. I think it's
On Black with Equal and Merchant of Venice.
Right.
It's,
And that was when you were directing, I guess, and now you're directing. How's the change been like, and how's it been like working with each other over the years?
I think it's been great, otherwise we wouldn't work again with each other. So I think Daniel's very good at his work, and he's trained, and he reminds me of myself when I was young and very enthusiastic and all. Part of us have become cynics over the years, but we still try to do what we do. And I like the fact that he's anal and he stands by what he wants from an actor. And I've also worked with senior actors, so who are much older than me and who are also maybe stars, etc. And I think the best way to go about working on a play with a director is to know that what he says, he's the captain of the ship. So there's no point arguing as an actor. I don't think that helps. Even if one has a valid point, I think, it's one person's vision, and that's the director. We can add some dimensions to it, but we shouldn't be changing it with our point of view. So I had kept that in mind, and I think it helps both of us. It's not just for his sake or mine. It's just it works. Maybe a couple of occasions I'm like, what the hell? I should be moving stage right. I think that's part of growing and working together.
I also think like in this particular play, just being two actors, there was there was a significant amount of collaboration. There was a lot of, it can get lonely when it's a two-hander, just the two of us in the rehearsal room, at least for the first part of the process. And I definitely had looked up to Vikram and I needed feedback. I would ask him like, what do you think this moment needs? So a lot of it was built together. I will say though, like it's interesting because our relationship is mirrored almost identically in Red. It took a while for me to get the comfort to direct someone like Vikram. And we definitely did have a little bit of, not confrontation, but there was definitely a moment where there was a clash. And I remember this clearly. We worked through it, we spoke, we sent a few emails about all the points that are working, not working. And at the end of it, Vikram came back to me and said, okay, now that we've had this moment, now I fully trust you. I'm yours, let's go. Remember that?
Yeah.
It was this distinct moment.
But the trust was there from the beginning.
But there's a certain moment when
except for certain moments,
yeah, but like there's even in Red this happens, like where the apprentice pushes back, meets the mentor on an equal footing, and then sort of pushes beyond. So in a certain way here as well, there was me figuring out how to build this piece with Vikram, and then it slowly moved into absolute ease and comfort and flow. And even now, like it's every show that we do, it's so interesting because we finish a show, we have an honest conversation about it, we come back to rehearse for the next show, and we try a bunch of different things based on what both of us felt.
We finish the show and we have a drink.
We have a drink.
The honest conversation is a day later.
Oh, the honest conversation is because of the drink.
So now that you were talking about getting to a point where you're kind of equal, etc., and you're collaborating instead of a mentor-mentee relationship, and there is that I'd like to say famous scene that those who've seen Red will know, where the two of you together paint this canvas red. Can you talk to me about that scene and how it was like doing it and how it is like doing it on stage every time? Have you painted before with those kind of reds?
Well, we worked hard, we rehearsed, and we had this canvas on the terrace of Daniel's apartment building. That's age. And so repetition, as they say, keep doing it. He worked very hard on it. Getting the paint and getting the color and all that.
And the consistency.
So, consistency, yeah. So it was quite a workout. Yeah.
It's amazing that you asked like how it is when we actually perform it, when it's actually done on stage. It gives me goosebumps for sure. There's this moment where we start painting vigorously on a beat, and when we hit that moment right, you can feel the audience is with you. You can feel this collective gasp. And we build a massive piece of canvas. Yeah, it's a 6 by 7 foot canvas. Painted by two people in the span of about a minute and a half. So it's a lot of work. But there's also the sense of build. It starts from the top and the bottom and it gets filled slowly, and then it gets evened out. So there's this sense of build, something's coming, creation is happening, and then creation takes place. And then the relief from that moment, it's very graphic. It leaves you. It's probably the moment in the play where I connect most with the character, because then you are truly being a painter in a studio, because you really are painting. It's just one of my favorite moments. And again, like with the making of it, it was a lot of work. It was bringing those canvases up to my terrace. Then we brought paint, we painted, then we're like, hey, we need to see this in light. So we would have to get light to see what it looks like in light, and then daylight, and then stage light. Okay, this is the wrong color. Let's go back, get some fresh color. Let's rework the consistency because the paint is looking nice, but it's too thick and it's taking too long to cover. Okay, let's water it down. Water it down. Now it's too thin. The layer's too thin. You're not getting that Rothko-esque glow that he talks about. A lot of trial and error. A lot of dirtying our clothes.
Yeah, it's a very messy business, and it's not like other rehearsals where you can use any space. You need to have your own floor. You can't, otherwise we'd be paying for damages wherever we rehearse, and so it's very messy. And then bathing after that and cleaning up, and it's worth the effort, I think.
Yeah,
it's an immersive experience for you as well as the audience.
Definitely, yeah.
So, how was you designed the set?
Yeah.
Right. So, how was designing the set like, and how does a stage like Prithvi, kind of like the shape of the stage and all of that, does that like a thrust stage help with the setting, or would you be able to do it on a proscenium?
Designing it for Prithvi, it's always easy to do that. I want to say that Prithvi sort of holds the right space for an intimate show like this, because Rothko Studio is all about darkness, and they say like Rothko had all his windows boarded up and wanted everything sort of closed and dark and intimate in a way, and Prithvi lends itself to that. But it's also Prithvi. Prithvi, you can stage almost anything at Prithvi because it's just so amazing. But it definitely helped. The thrust stage definitely brought the audience in. It gave them a sense of feeling that they're in a studio. So while a proscenium, you probably won't get that same sense of being in the studio, but you still get a sense of beauty of watching voyeuristically into a studio. The process of designing the set, it started with the first most important element, which is the central easel, which we paint on. That needs to be strong and robust, because the scene where we almost assault the painting, so that had to be strong. So that anchored the set, and then we had to have the elements that bring the studio to life: the paint table, the paint shelf. There was a lot of trips to Crawford Market, walking down the streets, begging people to give us buckets. Lots of buying paints, painting things in rehearsals. Oh, this looks nice. This looks like it's a used piece now. Make that part of the set. And then we were having this discussion. The most important element, which I think what became the most important element, was the floor. And we were stressing about this because paint splatters and we need to cover that floor, and I was trying to figure out how do we cover the patch which we paint on, and it's not really making sense with the vision, because what is a random patch of linoleum doing in the middle of Rothko's studio? And then Vikram said, why don't you just cover the whole stage?
No, Vikram didn't say. Vikram said 5 times. Cover the stage. Cover the...
But I was like, it's going to cost so much. It's going to how do we cover an entire stage with linoleum floor? And actually, very interestingly, what was happening was, we were opening the play for Prithvi Festival, and a month before the festival, the theatre is shut down for renovations. So we had gone in to do a little trial with our pulley system where we move the paintings up and down, and I walked in and the entire stage was covered in this blue tarpaulin, and they had these lights that dry off paint, which is kept around this space.
Yeah, I mentioned it.
That was such a phenomenal moment. I just walked in and I gasped. It was just stunningly beautiful. And then I was like, Vikram is right. I don't care how much it costs. We are covering the floor. And it's something which I think a lot about. I think a lot of designers now, when we design sets, we forget the floor. And there's so much potential. The floor is always another plane to build mood, narrative into. It's so important that the floor is treated as much as your set walls.
Especially in an arena space.
Yeah.
Like proscenium, one can understand, sometimes you can't see it, but the back rows can.
Yeah.
But yeah, so sometimes we make do with carpets and all, but we don't think of an entire, like it could be a marble floor in someone's, even if it's a house in a realistic setting.
Yeah.
But yeah, all this was great the way it worked out, except expenses. So as a producer, I first thought co-producer, that two characters. What are we going to do? We'll have one canvas. Little did I know that there'd be so much detailing, which is what counts actually.
No, in my defense, I also thought it's going to be relatively simple, but it's one of those catch-22 situations. You start building detail in one area, and then you find detail somewhere else, and the detail builds and builds and builds and builds and builds. And this play is elaborate because we've got canvases that have to be replaced every show. We use 3 different frames, 2 with canvas on them per show. We use paint that has to be replaced every show. Paint splatters, we have to wipe that up. We have towels that have to be replaced after every 3 or 4 shows. All the cloth that we use to mop up the paint gets replaced every so often. We have water. There's lots of water elements to clean the brushes. So this a certain part of the stage gets wet. So post-show we have to be careful how we wipe that up. So the production on this show is by far the most complicated that I've ever dealt with.
I can imagine. Follow up, is there a name to the shade of red that you use?
X130 and 7789 Asian paints.
Right, wow, correct. You spoke to us about being the producer and kind of looking at a play like that. You produce so many plays. What do you look for when you start writing something, when you start directing something, when you want to produce something? How do you go about that? What do you look for?
Well, I start first with writing, obviously, but if I'm writing myself as a playwright, I start with something that I want to say. So I don't really speak much in society. Whatever I want to say, I say in my work or through my work. So that's how it starts. And then, of course, I think subconsciously as a playwright, you're not keeping like scenes that happen in Switzerland or on the Alps or so. You know you're finally going to have this one space. That's unlike cinema. So, but I don't think we're consciously thinking of that. We're just, it just comes, as in playwriting. So that's how it starts. And then I do whatever I can to have it staged because I want to say what I want to say to the people at large. So
in the other production that's going on right now, the greatest show on earth, you are kind of criticizing the media at the moment, etc.
Criticizing, okay.
It's a commentary.
It's a satire, basically.
It's a satire on current day media, etc. Do you always think you need to get a message across through your plays?
Message. I don't know what message. Then I'd be a postman. It's more about I'm saying this is what's happening, and obviously through my words one can sense what I'm feeling and how I feel about certain things. But more than that, when I'm writing satire, I'm thinking entertainment. Like I don't think Logan is thinking entertainment as such. He's thinking about Rothko and the play and of course great stuff. But do I stop? Yeah. So satire, entertainment, and through entertainment there's a lot to say. I think I've achieved something as a playwright, even if one person in the audience has a slight refraction in the way he thinks about things in life.
Okay.
Then I say, okay, I've succeeded, even if that one person is there. So that's how Greatest Show came about. That's how the earlier play Black with Equal. But satire is something as a playwright, I enjoy doing.
And why did you choose to go into musical format? How do you think?
I think the concept lent itself to a musical format, to say something with rhyme and rhythm. So that's how it evolved. I didn't plan it. So.
And how was that process like, putting the songs together and the team together?
songs together, fine. It evolved with composers. There was Rohit Das and Kashish Sharma, but and it evolved with the help of, and I wanted to do it that way with the help of the actors. So I wanted the actors to say it first in rehearsal, learn their lines, say it and sing it the way they feel they would like to sing it, and not just go to a music composer and say, okay, here are the notes, now do it accordingly. So it has been, casting it was tough because I need mostly everyone in the cast to be actors, singer, dancers, musicians, which is, so that's tough to get everyone on that level. So like I myself, I'm petrified to sing on stage, stems from problems in childhood when our music teachers had a ruler and they shouted at us, and so yeah, it's difficult to get that, but you'll be surprised, there is a lot of talent in this city and they do manage it.
Interesting. I want to talk to you about Jester Productions.
Yeah.
How did that whole thing come about? Can you talk about it?
Started in college, St. Xavier's College, 2010. We were doing a play called Equus at Festival Ithaca, picked up by QTP for Thespuat Prithvi. Oh my God, we had suddenly a professional company. We need a name. Jester Productions came about. So we were a bunch of college kids suddenly on the professional stage. Midway through, I changed the name for a bit to Parallel Lines Productions, but it didn't sit right. I always, just because that first play that we did, Equus, was so special to us, it was Jester Productions Equus, that I couldn't let go of the name.
This is like Chaplin, no? It suddenly happened that he was called to replace someone, and he just wore that coat that didn't fit
him. And identity is made.
And suddenly he became Chaplin, a jester.
Yeah. And yeah, so it started back then. We were a bunch of college students. We did Equus for a couple of years, and then people started moving away to do other things. I moved to Goa for a while. We changed form for a bit. We started working with schools, producing annual day concerts, and we moved into education, doing workshops and stuff like that.
How is it like working with children?
It's very interesting. So I have done a lot of work with primary school kids, and with every production there have been a minimum of 3, if not 5 future superstars. It's really hard. So the primary age kids, what's good about them is that they're before the age of embarrassment and what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, it's before they start being fully aware of themselves. So they give it their all. Extremely naughty, extremely hard to control, and to get stuff out of some of them. But that remaining sort of 25% of students are phenomenally talented, and out of them there are so many superstars. And it's amazing. This one kid once choreographed an entire dance number for me. He said, I'm going to do somersaults here, I'm going to jump on that table, I'm going to jump on this chair. And I'm like, this is phenomenal, go do it. Very, very rewarding working with kids, for sure.
How is it different? How is the audience in Goa different from the audience in Mumbai?
The audience in Goa, I do a lot of my theatre in Arambol, and there it's a very sort of avant-garde, hippie-esque vibe. The audiences lie on the floor with pillows, It's very informal. There's almost never a fourth wall. They are very responsive because they are primed to think, to experience. They don't have the hustle and bustle of a city to distract them. So when they come in, they are engaged, although it may not seem like when they're lying on the floor. But super responsive, and the audiences that you meet, or rather after shows, you spend a lot of time with the audiences because it's a smaller community. You go out for a drink with them. Like it's almost like half the theatre goes to the bar or goes to the restaurant, and you meet people, you hang out, you collaborate, you find collaborators to collaborate with. It's definitely interesting. In Bombay, I mean, the audiences have been really good for Red so far and the other stuff that I've done. But there is a bit of a finality. You definitely have a receptive audience that comes in, is respectful of the space. They sit upright. They'll watch the show. They'll probably give you a standing ovation because it's Bombay. You'll meet them afterwards outside. You'll probably have a few meaningful conversations, but then they go home, and then that's it. And then you're back to yourself, and your company.
I think they're different in South Bombay and in suburbs.
How so?
Yeah.
I think so. I think the South Bombay audience is a little more proper. They're more the Western music concert kind of.
You go to the Royal Opera House.
Yeah, and NCPA.
NCPA, of course.
I think the Prithvi audience, for example, is more relaxed and open. And
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm being reductive but this is what I've sensed.
I think for me, I definitely see a bigger difference between Bombay and Goa versus South Bombay and Prithvi.
But does the Goa audience come on time?
Oh, no way. We start minimum an hour late. It's ridiculous. So I think that's what it is. I mean, the grass is always greener. When I'm in Goa, I'm like, I just wish we had a more disciplined audience and an easy audience to deal with. But after you finish a show, it's something which also one of my theatre mentors, John Britton, in Greece, like we used to have this concept of performance, which almost becomes a party, becomes a celebration. It's a space where anyone can perform anything, and it's met with celebration and adoration, and it would lead to absolutely phenomenal levels of creation because there wasn't any judgment involved, and those communities that were developed were so tight-knit, personally, on a personal level, and also professionally. That's something which I wish we could create over here, this almost ecstatic level of collaboration.
I think they're more they are open to experiments there, right? To site-specific stuff and all. Here it's a bit, here they think first of parking, anyone would. And secondly, whether it's a, regular venue and, where you get your tickets from. I think that plays a major part.
The economics of it.
Yeah.
You've been doing theatre for a long, long time. And you spoke about, the Prithvi audience versus the NCPA audience, etc. What do you think of these theatre spaces? You said before that we don't have too many. Now there's NMAC that's come up. What do you think of the Mumbai theatre scene, and what can be done to maybe add some improvements, if any?
Well, I mean, we definitely need infrastructure because over the last 4 decades, it's not really grown except for NMAC. But Prithvi and NCPA experimental are like home to me. I mean, I almost know every plug point in both. Of course, they've added stuff over the years and all. But we should have had at least 6 more experimental and Prithvi theatres in the last 4 decades. And that's not happened. But there are more groups doing theatre. I mean, there's no rational reason to do theatre in Bombay or anywhere. But there are more irrational people, but the infrastructure is the same. It's not grown at all. So that's really sad. That's tough.
Is the answer the smaller theatres that have cropped up in Oshiwara and Andheri and about those cafes, or are they not? I mean, maybe infrastructure is not that great.
I very quickly would like to say that we are thankful that they're coming up with these spaces, but we'd appreciate it if they'd contact us before completing the construction of such places, or putting their lights, or the whole system up. Because it's not about small, big, or how many lights one has. It's about the right kind of space, dimension, where, like for example, there's one theatre in the suburbs. They're trying to do good work. But it's a mini proscenium, where the proscenium is between the stalls audience and the balcony audience. So you're performing to a wall. And it has no depth and all that. But like, people are trying, so it's there's no point just criticizing them. But we hope like they call us, because the lighting bars and the FOH light, the front of the house and all, has to hit at a certain angle to the actor. You can't just say, okay, we'll put a bar here and then. It doesn't work that way. So if they get professionals, sound and light and all, like the Royal Opera House, when it was renovated, it's a stunning job, of renovation. But they've done something to the walls on stage and they've ruined the entire acoustics of the place. So, I mean, then for us to go and perform there, as it is, we are like gypsies. We don't have one dedicated space where we do a play like on Broadway or off Broadway.
Yeah.
And then to go there on that day and then manage with all these challenges, then the audience points a finger at us like, we aren't speaking properly or they couldn't hear and, the lighting was not good. And so it's just, I wish they were more inclusive when they build spaces with professionals.
I think, like, for me, if I can answer this question as well, for me, really is this thing of not being in the space for long enough. The struggle is we don't have audiences, and theatre companies across the city have been racking their brains over how do we get more audiences in, and this is something collectively we need to crack, because what for me would be ideal is a situation where a company goes into a space, builds the piece in that space and runs the entirety of their run in that space. For it to be profitable, you need an audience to come consistently over the run to that venue. But if that's possible, you'll be able to see, because there are so many creative minds right now in the city coming up with absolutely phenomenal experimental work. But imagine if you can actually experiment with your experimental work. Try, fail, bring science into it, create a magic cloud that comes in a second and disappears in 3 seconds. Use science to make stunning work. If we had time in a venue, we can have time in a venue if we get the audiences. It's a catch-22 thing again.
Also, it's strange. I'm not sure we have a culture of a theatre-going audience, because they do go for films and on any day of the week or at for any show, matinee or evening or night. But for theatre, it's not there really.
Do you think it's different for regional theatre? Maybe for like Marathi or Gujarati theatre in Mumbai?
So Marathi does have a culture of theatre, so does Gujarati. But Gujarati, unfortunately, over the years has sort of petered down into commercial comedies and all that. I've grown up seeing great stuff, with Praveen Joshi and Arvind Joshi and all their plays. But now it's sort of, but still they do kind of earn a living on theatre. A lot of them do not want to go into television because they're making money in theatre, enough to keep their kitchen fires burning. So sometimes they do an average of 30 shows a month, which is fantastic. Well, at least before COVID. I don't know now, and I think Bhaidas is being renovated, so that's a big issue for them. But that's temporary, I think. So yeah, the English theatre growing gradually. It's a baby compared to these Marathi and Gujarati.
No, makes sense. And finally, looking forward, what do you see for theatre in Mumbai? And if you want to talk about any other projects or anything else that you're doing?
I am wanting to put up a piece that I've been wanting to do for many years. And in fact, I did a short version of this at the Celebrate Bandra Festival in 2016. It's a musical called In Trousers. It's a 4-person musical. It's a small cast, but phenomenally written harmonies that makes it sound big. It's a small band, but again, fantastically written to make it sound big. It's exciting because, the lyrics are cheeky, the music is fun, and it's extremely evocative and emotive. It's a coming out story of this person, Marvin, and it's the early part of his life story, him and the 3 important women in his life. It's one of my dream projects that hopefully one day will come to fruition.
Is there a role for me in that?
If you want to play a 30s gay man who sings constantly.
Sings?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll start taking lessons then.
Yeah.
So yeah. There are a whole lot of classics that I'd like to stage. My thing is, about the future that you were asking, that, for example, there's Adhyam, right? So we were the flagship production with the Merchant of Venice. Now, I think we need 50 Adhyams in this city where they adopt one theatre group each. So we get the space and the finance, the funding to just relax and do some good creative work. So I think we need, and there are so many big corporate, houses that can do this. So, I'm thankful at least Adhyam has put their foot into theatre. But we need many more, all these, Tatas and Birlas. And Birla is Adhyam actually.
Yeah.
Who else? Adani. But as long as they don't, sort of moral police what we do.
Influence.
So, yeah. But we need a lot of that.
I was looking forward to better theatre in Mumbai.
Yeah.
And good luck for the upcoming shows.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you, Vikram.
Thanks.
Thank you.